talk to you tonight is this, is that as a Christian, you should have the flow of God out of your life. But there are certain spirits that will try to stop the flow of God in your life. There are spirits that are out there that are seeking to destroy this teenage generation. And over the next several weeks, I'm going to be speaking on spirits seeking to destroy a teenage generation. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians 4:18, while we do not look at things which are seen, but at the things are unseen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things that are not seen are eternal. There are things that we don't see spiritually that are happening each and every day. And there are things that happen physically that we see. The Bible says here that the things that we see physically, they're only temporary. They're going to go away. But what you see and what you experience spiritually will go on forever. Making a decision to follow after God is an eternal decision. Not following after God is an eternal decision. We know that the Bible says in Ephesians 6:12. Go ahead and throw that up there, Justin. Ephesians 6:12. Next one. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of this dark world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So we know that the Bible says that there is a spiritual fight that is happening that we cannot see. We can't see it. But it's going on, and it's not against people who have flesh and blood, but it's against spirits. Now, see, we live in a very spiritual world. There's spirits everywhere. People watch movies about spirits. They watch movies about the activity that goes on, good versus evil. There are constantly movies coming out about someone who is demon-possessed, that they bring in the Catholic priest or the pastor, and then the demon is gone, and spiritual warfare happens, and all this stuff happens. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight that spiritual warfare is very real, and that spirits are a real thing. But what I want you to understand is that ghosts are not real. Ghosts are not real. What a ghost is simply a spirit that is trying to trick you. So that night when you're sleeping in your bed, and then you hear, okay, what's going on? And then all of a sudden the door swings open, and Aunt Jemima walks in as a ghost, and you're thinking, Aunt Jemima, you're dead. She says, yes, I'm dead, but I'm here for you to serve you pancakes for all the rest of your life. Listen, that ain't no Aunt Jemima. That is a spirit. That's a spirit. People say, well, I've seen my grandfather. I've seen my aunt, my uncle. I've seen my spouse. I've seen my kids. Listen to me. Those are not ghosts. Those are spirits where Satan is trying to trick you and say, you know what, this spirit, if I send it as their grandfather, if I send it as their mom, their dad, their kid, they're going to see that and they're going to recognize that, and I can trick them into believing that ghosts are real, and I can pull them away from God. There are spirits that are alive, that are real, that are seeking to destroy each and every one of you. They're out there. And what I'm going to do over the next few weeks is I'm going to help you recognize the spirits. I'm going to help you be able to recognize when a spirit comes against you, what the name of that spirit is and what they're trying to do to your life. And I was praying, okay, God, where do you want me to start? What spirit do you want me to talk about? Where do you want me to go with this? And it goes back to the fact of the very beginning there was a spirit that was around before even creation. There was a spirit that fell, that was put into creation when Lucifer fell from heaven. But tonight, what I want to talk to you about is I want to talk to you about the spirit of Leviathan. Leviathan. You see that on the screen, Leviathan. Many of you how many of you study Greek mythology? In school, study Greek mythology. There's a creature called the Leviathan that is talked about. Now see, the Leviathan is a spirit that is seeking to destroy your generation. We read in the Bible about this spirit and the way that it is and how it operates and what it does. But Leviathan is a very twisted, a very evil, and a very prideful spirit. When I was thinking of Leviathan, I was thinking of something just really totally hideous and ugly. And then I began to read the scripture of what Leviathan is. The Bible says that the Leviathan spirit could be like a crocodile, where it would take its prey, it would crush it and take it under the water, it would get around its prey, and it would begin to crush him till it was dead. Like a snake or a serpent, Leviathan twists and braids itself and then ultimately coils around its victim and destroys him. How many of you ever seen like Gator Boys or like hunting for the alligators? Those crazy people that go out there and wrestle them gators. Number one, they're nuts. I'm just going to tell you. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't do that. I'm just saying. I probably would. I'd probably go after an alligator. But if you ever watch how these alligators are powerful. They're very, very powerful. They have powerful jaws, a powerful mouth that is extremely powerful in destroying something. If you've ever seen an alligator or a crocodile pull something into the water, those jaws come up, and as soon as those jaws come down, that thing is dead. Why? Because there is a power within the mouth of that animal. Leviathan comes from the root word leva, which means to join itself with another. That's what Leviathan, the root word means, leva. It's L-A-V-A-H. And it means to join oneself to another. So what I want you to remember is this. Leviathan has a powerful mouth. And the meaning of Leviathan is to join one with another. This is what that spirit does. But it's interesting because the Bible does talk about this. In Isaiah 27:1, it says this. At that time, God will unsheath his sword, his merciless, massive, mighty sword. He'll punish the serpent, Leviathan, as it flees. The serpent Leviathan, thrashing in flight, he will kill that old dragon that lives in the sea. We understand that Greek mythology said that there was this creature named Leviathan. But the Leviathan, it lived in the ocean. It lived in the sea. It lived in the water. See, Leviathan liked to live in the deep where you couldn't see it. And then it would come and destroy you without you even knowing. But what's really interesting is Job. In Job 41, he paints this picture. He says this, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook or tie down its tongue with a rope? Can you pull a cord through its nose and pierce its jaw with a hook? Will it keep begging for mercy? Will it speak to you with gentle words? Will it make an agreement with you for you to take it as your slave for life? Can you make it a pet? Put it on a leash for the young women in your house? Will traders barter for it? Will they divide it up among the merchants? Can you feel it? Can you fill its hide with harpoons or its head with fishing spears? If you lay a hand on it, you will remember the struggle, that works, and you'll never do it again. Listen to this. Any hope of subduing it is false. The mere sight of it is overpowering. No one is fierce enough to rouse it. Who then is able to stand against this monster? I was thinking about what Leviathan would look like. And I was thinking that it might kind of, in my mind, look something like that. To me, that's what a Leviathan would look like. I would think that it's just got this massive mouth because it crushes things and destroys with its mouth. It's got this long body and blends with the water so you cannot see him coming. He's got scales that are upon him that are very tough and rough. But I was thinking what Leviathan would look like, and I said, you know what? This would be a good picture of what Leviathan could be. It kind of looks like a dinosaur, but it looks like a thing. But spiritually, we don't know what Leviathan looks like. But if I could just paint this picture for you and say, in the spiritual realm, this is what you're going up against. This is what you're fighting when you fight Leviathan. A monster. A monster that is also known as a spirit of pride. That's what Leviathan is known for. Leviathan is a spiritual element that we know as pride. You and I, we know what pride means. We know that word. That's familiar to us. But see, the spirit of Leviathan is going to fight against the flow of God in your life. It's going to try to hinder the glory that can be brought through your life. The glory of God that he wants to rise up inside of you, Leviathan is going to try to destroy. The thing about Leviathan, it's a very, very strong and powerful thing. There's three things to know about Leviathan. Number one is this, that it is a fleeing spirit, meaning that it can flee but then come back unnoticed. It can run under the water and you won't know where it's coming from. The spirit of Leviathan is a fleeing spirit. Number two, it is a very twisted spirit. It likes to twist things in your mind. It likes to confuse you. It likes you to make you think things are different than what they were. The spirit of Leviathan, the spirit of pride, goes like this. In Revelation chapter 12, there's a story about a woman, and this is a figurative, Revelation is a figurative book, and it talks about these stories, and it says, there's a story about a woman who is about to give birth to a child, but there is a dragon that came and is going to sit there and wait for this woman to give birth to this child so it can snatch it up and eat it. That's what it says in the book of Revelation. Well, what is this dragon that is going to snatch up and eat? What is this creature that is going to eat this child that is born? Well, let's go back to the very beginning. And I mean the very, very beginning. I'm not talking Adam and Eve in the garden. We'll get there. But let's go back before even that happened. And let's talk about what was going on. Before even the earth was created, before even there was grass, water, the planets, before anything, there was God and there was angels. These angels were served God and they were with God. And God created this group of angels called archangels. These were bad angels. These are warrior angels. You have the angel Gabriel, who's like the messenger angel. He's an archangel that's used by God. We see him throughout all of the Bible. He's popping up to people and says, hey, I got a message for you. Hey, I got a message for you. Hey, I got a message for you. Gabriel is an archangel that God uses to send messages. Then there's my favorite angel, Michael. Michael is a bad angel dude. Michael is the warrior angel. When you read the book of Revelation and you read other books, you'll hear about Michael. Michael's always laying the smackdown on some spiritual demon. Michael is who I want by my side. But then there was another angel that was created. That was an angel that was created. You had one that was a messenger, one that was like the protector, and then you had one that was created for glory, for splendor, for music. This archangel's name was Lucifer. It was a beautiful angel. It was said to be the most beautiful thing ever. It was just, everything about Lucifer was beautiful. He was a being of great beauty. He was created, when the Bible says that he was created as a worshipful being. He was the first original worship leader in heaven. He was the original. He was created for worship. And it said that Lucifer was even so beautiful that in who he was, in his being, worship came out of. It talks about that he had the instruments inside of him as a being of who he was. It would make beautiful glory unto God. Those were the three angels. I'm sure that they hung out. They talked. They got together. They spent time together. They spent time with God. But see what happened one day, Lucifer had a thought that popped into his mind. He thought, you know what, this is all great, this is all good. But what if angels worshiped me rather than God? What if I became God and they worshiped me? I'm beautiful. I'm powerful. I'm a created being. I'm by God's hand. I'm a majestic, beautiful being. I'm an archangel. They should follow me. They should worship me. But then what he began to do is he began to influence other people because his pride in himself, he thought himself to be the best. That moment that thought entered Leviathan, the spirit of pride was born. And the spirit of pride has only grown many, many, many years to be a prideful person. But then when God realized what was happening, and he realized that there was a battle brewing and that people wanted to take over and be God, so he cast them out of heaven. And they took 1/3 of the heavenly hosts with them. So all of the angels that said, you know what, Lucifer, you're right. We're going to serve you. We're going to worship you because you're it. You're beautiful. You're the man. We're going to worship you rather than God. God casted them all out. And you see the picture. Lucifer fell from heaven. An archangel fell from heaven. And you and I know him today as Satan, as the devil. That's who he is today. And the ones that have fallen with him, they're demonic spirits. They're forces that he has formed to destroy you and me. But I began to think about this concept of pride, to think that, you know what, I'm better than who God is. And if you have a piece of paper, I want you to write this down. If you could put this in your phone, I want you to put this in your phone. But there's a very thought that I had about this situation. Lucifer tried to unseat God in heaven. He felt like he could do a better job. He wanted worship and wanted to be praised. He felt that he deserved it. He had pride. If pride can make an archangel into a devil, then what do you think it could do to you and to me? I want you to understand that. If pride can make an archangel, one who's with God, who has this ranking up in heaven with God to be an archangel. If someone like that, if a creature that can be created as an archangel, if pride can make him into the devil, then what is it going to do to you and to me? Think about that. This was an angel that had pride in its life. And because of pride, it got turned into the devil. That really began to make me think, because I believe that the spirit of pride of Leviathan is taking over the world today. It's taking over your generation. Your whole generation is based on one thing: me. It's about me. See, we live in a world, in a society today that says, you know what, it's all about you. What you can do, how you can do it, how good you can do it, how better you can do it than everybody else is all about you. You watch out for you. Don't worry about anybody else. You just do whatever you want. But not only you do whatever you want, but you know what? Dude, you can believe whatever you want to. If you want to believe in anything crazy, you believe it. If you want to believe that this water bottle is God, you go ahead. You can worship the water bottle. If you want to believe that you're God, go ahead, believe that. And then we've got to a point where right or wrong, you know what? It's all what we feel is right and wrong. And that's the way the world is headed. That it is about what I feel, what I want, and what I think that matters. I remember being a kid. I'd say something to my dad. My dad said, "That's nice, but it doesn't matter what you think. You're 2, you're 3, you're 4. I remember being like 8 years old. Dad, I want to drive the car. No, I think I could drive. It doesn't matter what you think you can do. You're not driving the car. Come on, 8 years old, I could have tore down that road. At 8 years old, I probably couldn't hit the pedal. I probably had to have some help. But I thought that I knew better than what my dad did. As I grew older, I thought I knew better than what my teachers did. I'm telling you, if I could go back to school and apologize to my teachers for being a complete idiot in their class, I would. As I grew older, I thought that I knew better than what God knew. So you got to understand something. The spirit of the Leviathan, me and that thing have been fighting since I've been alive. I talk about it openly. I'm very open. That pride is a big issue for me. That I fight with pride all the time. So I know Leviathan, and I know, I read what it did to this archangel and how it made it into the devil, and I'm thinking, God, I do not want to be like this. Do you know it's really, really hard to find someone who's genuinely humble in this world? Even within the Christian church, to find someone who's a humble person. I could probably count on my hand in 26 years how many people I've met that are really, I could say that's a humble person. It's a rare find to find people who are truly a humble person. Why? Because Leviathan has wrapped so many people up. And I think Leviathan is slippery. It doesn't want to get caught. Pride does not want to be exposed. Pride does not want to be shown. You see, what we want is we want people to serve us and do what we want. And we have this pride, but yet we don't want people to think that we have pride. We don't want people to think that we're that way. But see, this is it. Leviathan is a twisted spirit, and it can take something holy and make it unholy. It can take the truth and make it look like a lie. Do you know that if I wanted to, I could take the Bible, and I could give you a verse, but I could twist it to make it say what I want to say? I could. I could twist verses in the Bible and make them say what I want them to say because I want them to say it. We live in a world today, that's what we do to justify sin, to make sin okay. We say, oh, well, if you interpret the Bible this way, this is what it says. Or if you read it this way and you put your own spin on the Word of God, that's what Leviathan does. But what's interesting is when you read the book of Job and you read chapter 41, God asked Job specific questions to help him recognize who Leviathan is. The first question that he asked was found in verse 2. He said, listen, can you draw out Leviathan with a hook or a snare? Can you put a reed through his nose? God is saying, listen, do you have the ability to think that you can overcome pride? Because when you're fishing, when you go fishing and you let a fish hook down and you catch a fish, you're in control once it gets out of the water. But it's getting it out of the water that it works. Now, if I were to throw you in the ocean and told you go fight that thing, here's a hook, put it through his nose, we won't be able to do that. But see, there's the inability of a human man or woman, or man, woman, whatever. There's an inability within you and I to conquer and dominate this thing by ourselves. He is saying that you can't deal with this without my help. Leviathan cannot be bound. You cannot master pride. You will not beat pride by yourself. What is pride? Pride is, I'm the best. It's about me. You see, we don't necessarily have to say. We don't have to say it. How many times have you gone to school and there's that one person you know in school and they're like, and they got that walk, that goofy walk. And you know that person thinks they are all that. They are God's gift to your school. You just want to go up and smack them. You do. You're like, Lord, please let them trip over that pencil. Please, please. You want them just to look stupid so they cannot walk like they're all that. But see, that tells me that we don't even need to use our words to let people know that we're prideful, that we're arrogant, that we're full of what we want. Pride is wanting what I want when I want it, how I want it. That is what the spirit of pride is all about. Because see, arrogant people, they don't want to depend on anyone, especially God. Arrogant people don't think they need anyone, they just need themselves. They don't want to hear truth. Psalms 10:4 says, in his pride, the wicked man does not seek him, and his thoughts, there is no room for God. Because listen to me, young person, when all I think about is me, there's no room for God, because I'm too busy thinking about me, thinking about myself. See, I don't need God because I got myself. I don't need God because I can do things my way. I can handle things my way. The way God exposes Leviathan is to make you realize that, first of all, you cannot conquer this on your own. He wants people to believe the lie and accusation against you. He wants people to slander you. He wants people to tear you down. He wants the fight. He likes the fight. Verse 3 says this is my second point. The question he asks is, will he beg you over and over for mercy or flatter you with flowery speech? See, the spirit of Leviathan, it thinks prayer is stupid. It makes us think that we can do this ourselves. You know what? Don't pray to God, because you can do this on your own. Don't ask God to help your family. Don't ask God to help you on this test. Don't ask God to help you get this job. Don't ask God to heal you. You don't need God. You can do all of these things on your own. You don't need any help from anybody. You can do all of this by yourself. Do you know the number one obstacle to prayer is pride? The number one obstacle for you to pray is yourself, is pride. That you don't need to pray. That you don't need to be in communication with God. I think of it this way. Humble people depend on God, and humble people recognize the grace of God and are thankful. Prideful people depend on man, and they depend on themselves, and they are not grateful. None of us like people who are all about themselves. Do we? No. We do not like people that are about themselves. But some of you are like me, and we're all about ourselves. We're all about what we can do and how we can do it and how we can do things. Let me ask you this. Have you ever talked with someone and you thought it was clear communication and then it wasn't? I do it all the time. I'm like, don't jump off of that. And somewhere the communication gets lost, and someone's trying to climb up the building and do a backflip. How many remember the telephone game? Some of you would be like, you would say something to one person, and then they'd have to communicate down the line. You would end up being like, I like Coca-Cola. And then get down to the line. Keebler elves live in my basement. What? How did it get from I love Coke to Keebler elves making cookies in my basement. Communication got lost somewhere. Didn't it? Yeah, communication gets lost. You know what Leviathan loves to do? Leviathan will hide the meaning behind what is said and hope for miscommunication and misunderstanding because it wants to twist the words that are said to you. That's what Leviathan does. It twists words and it confuses you about certain things when they're said to you. He wants you to be confused. He wants you to not understand. He wants you to miss the whole point of what is going on because he wants you to realize you don't need to listen because what you think is better than what he can say. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people not in the church, outside, and I start telling them about God, and they're like, listen, I got this myself. I got life figured out. You know, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I don't need God. I kind of got the things that I need, and I figured out the answers. See, Leviathan, what it'll do is it will hide the meaning of what was said. It will cause there to be miscommunication and misunderstanding. That's how then it can sow discord among you and among me. And someone comes up to me, and I can tell you, this happens on Tuesday night. Someone comes up to me, Pastor Micah, what? You're not going to believe what this person said about me. What did they say about you? And then they say something. I drag this person over. Hey, come here. What? Did you say this about this person? No. See, they didn't even say it about you. Oh, okay. And then they run off. Listen, miscommunication can get you in a lot of trouble. Because what can happen is, I'll pick on Amir because I pick on him all the time. Amir can do something that I don't like, and I can tell Clay. And then Clay can tell Trevor. Trevor can tell Joe. Joe can tell Ken. Ken can tell Felicia. Felicia can tell Jen. Jen can tell Amir what I said. And the next thing, Amir shows up. He's like, dude, why'd you say this about me? I'm like, I never said that about you. Because, see, what likes to happen is Leviathan, the spirit of pride, likes to misconstrue and tear things apart so that you and I will fight one with another. Let me be real. Let me be real for a minute. Listen, all eyes here. Some of you don't like someone in this youth group or have problems with someone in this youth group because they said something about you, or you think they said something about you that they never even said. So you've been totally ignorant to them and mean to them and rotten to them based on something you thought they said. Can I tell you that Leviathan won? Leviathan won. Because there is discord. What is discord? Is when things break apart and the cord is not complete. Discord is when things happen. When people are upset with other people because they said this or they said that. The spirit of discord will get into our lives. You said this, I said that, this happened, that happened. Then there's this thing. When something is brought up, and you're like, no, I'm right. 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 I'm right. And we arguing back and forth who's right and who's wrong. Why do you think we want to be right so bad? Because of pride. I don't want to admit I am wrong. Trust me, I have a really hard time with this. I do. When I do something stupid or I do something wrong, I have the hardest time swallowing my pride and saying I'm sorry. Because we don't like to admit when we're wrong. But see, that's what Leviathan does. Leviathan thinks, it's okay, you weren't wrong, you were right. You were right. You were right about everything. And that's what Leviathan does. It uses its powerful jaws and mouth to crush me, to crush other people, to make me think things that are said are true, things that aren't said are true, that lies are true, that lies aren't true, all of these things. You know, this can happen. Miscommunication. The spirit of Leviathan can get between you and your mom, between you and your dad, Between you and your best friend, between you and your girlfriend, between you and your aunt, between you and your neighbor, between you and your teacher, between you and your pastor. Do you know that the spirit of Leviathan is not a respecter of persons? It doesn't care who you are or who you have a relationship with. Pride does not care. A prideful person doesn't care what you think, what you think, what you think, what you think, what you think. Pride doesn't care. It doesn't care what anybody thinks. We get this attitude, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I'm going to do what I want when I want. I'm going to say what I want when I want to say it. And I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just going to let you know now that the spirit of the Leviathan is stopping the flow of God in your life. The spirit of pride has wrapped you up so tightly, and it's about to take its final chomp on you. It's about to destroy you because you think it's all about you. You think it's all about you. You don't think we deal with this? Dude, we deal with this in this youth ministry all the time. You know, I've heard this, I can't even say hundreds of times. Well, they're at my youth group. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry they came to your youth group because apparently it has nothing to do with all of the other teens and myself that are here. I just want to go. My youth group, my church, my this, my that. I said it in the beginning. The things of this world are very temporary, and they will fall away. This church is here. But you know, it could be 100 years, this church might not even be here. Things are temporary. But see, it's about fighting the spirit of the Leviathan and fighting the spirit of pride that is in our life. The next one, he goes and he says this, hey, will you be able? Let's go to the next one, Justin. Will you be able to make an agreement with you for you to take it for this, for you? Well, can you make an agreement with pride? Can pride in you agree on anything? Then can you take it as your slave for life? Come on, you can make an agreement with pride. You can justify doing what you want, when you want, whenever you want. But see, this spirit will not it will not agree with you. It will not bow to you because it's independent as its own. Do you know that someone that's prideful has a hard time committing? Someone that is prideful can't commit because they're too worried about them. There's been many times I have asked for help from students or teachers or leader or this or that. Yeah, I'll be there to help you out. I'll be there. Commitment broken. Hey, don't worry. I'll be there at 6:30. Commitment broken. Why? Because you're too concerned about yourself. I've been there. I have done this. But in the area of commitments, a person of pride cannot keep their commitments because what they want to do is more important. I can't even tell you how many times as a teenager I called into work sick. I wasn't sick. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to do this. I wanted to go do that. I didn't feel my commitment because I was too concerned about myself. Do you know that commitment is very huge to God? Being a person of your word. Now, yeah, situations happen if you can't make it to something because of an accident or this or that. I understand that. But being a person of commitment is showing that you are a person of humility. Very, very, very rarely do I not wear a watch. Because, see, I was taught that when I respect people's time, they will respect me. If I have to be somewhere at 8:30, I try to be there before or right at 8:30. If I try to make it to this and make it to that, you know, and it's a commitment thing. I'm a respecter of other people's time because I want them to know that their time is important to me. Because when I have people that want some of my time, I want them to understand that the time is important. But a person of pride can't commit to time. They can't commit to anything. What's interesting is that one friend you have who's all about them and no one else, and they only care about them. Do you know a prideful person has problems making friends? People that are very extremely prideful, they have a hard time making friends. I was just talking to two students before, and we were talking about how sometimes you think you have friends until something happens, right? You think you have friends until something happens, and they bail on you, and they're gone because they're too worried about themselves. You don't think it works? Check out what Peter did. Peter said, I don't know Jesus. I don't know him. He said it once. I don't know Jesus. Said it twice. Third time, I don't know that man. Why? Because his pride said, don't be associated with Jesus right now. You're not going to be associated with him. Jesus' own friend let his pride keep him from saying he was friends with Jesus. You don't think that your friends are going to do the same to you? Being a person of pride has a really hard time making friends. Pride is not going to submit. It's not going to serve anybody. The Leviathan will not be served. Let's go to the next point. Can you make it a pet or put it on a leash for the young women in your house? Another version says, can you make it a pet? Will you make him the mascot of the neighborhood? Will you make it a pet? Can you give it to your children? I don't know about you, but I do not want that thing as a pet. I do not want that thing as a pet at my house. Because number one, it can't be controlled. That's like going out to the Amazon or going out to the desert or going out to wherever. That's like taking a lion right out of the wild and sticking it in your living room and say, this is my kitty cat. Yeah, you're about to become kitty food. That's like jumping in a pool with a great white shark. You can't control something that's wild and doesn't want to be controlled. You can't control pride because it doesn't want to be controlled. You can't take it home and it be something that, you know what, I got this. I have control over this. Even when you get a dog that has not been trained, it will run all over the place. It will go all over the place till you train it. It can be trained, but listen to me. You cannot train the spirit of Leviathan. You cannot train the spirit of pride. It's going to try to break out no matter where and no matter when it can. You're not going to be able to contain it. You can't put pride in your life and set it aside and said, all right, I'm going to leave my pride here, and I'm going to go over here. I'm not going to have any pride for today. That sucker's going to break out of its cage and come with you. That pride is going to follow you everywhere that you go. The spirit of Leviathan is going to go after you, and it's going to come. Because Leviathan needs a victim. It needs someone to feed on. It needs someone to go after. Pride needs someone to take the blame because they're not going to. Pride says, you know what? It wasn't me, it was them. Let's jump forward to the Garden of Eden. Eve is there. There's a fruit. God says, hey, you have the whole reign of this. Do whatever you want, but don't eat of that tree. What does Eve do? She eats of the tree. She eats of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And then the blame game starts happening. God, this wife that you've given me. You want to talk about throwing somebody out on a bus? Think about it. Adam and Eve, the very first two people. Adam's like, yo, it was all her. She did it all. The very first two people threw each other under the bus. The very first two people played the blame game. Because see, the very first, and this makes me wonder, what if Adam would have ate the fruit? What if Eve would have said, you know what? No, I'm not gonna be prideful. Because see what Satan said to her? Satan didn't say, hey, eat this fruit, it's gonna be delicious. It's gonna be good. Satan didn't say to her, hey, eat this fruit. and then you're going to be just the most beautiful person on the planet. What got Eve is that when Satan whispered this to her, he said, eat this fruit, and when you do, you will be greater than God. That's what got her. The pride that I can be greater than the creation. I thought about it this way. You have a toy maker who makes toys, right? Right? A toy maker who makes toys. Will the toy ever be greater than the toy maker? No. The toy will never be able to be greater than the toy maker because the toy maker made the toy. It will never, ever. We as a creation will never be greater than our Creator. I can't be better than God. It is not possible in my being as who I am. As soon as I'm born into this world, the thought of being greater than God is eliminated because I was born into a life of sin. But Leviathan says that you can be greater. Pride says that you can be greater than God. But then this is what pride does to you, my last point. If you lay a hand on it, you will not live to tell the story. I talked about how you can't beat the spirit of pride by yourself. You can't overcome the spirit of Leviathan by yourself. Because trust me, if you think you can get a hand on pride, you're not going to live to tell the story. You're not going to be able to function and live. Pride's going to tell you that there's nothing that can hurt you. Pride's going to tell you there's nothing that can stop you. Pride is going to tell you that you're completely oblivious to pain. Pride is going to tell you you can beat death. Pride is going to tell you all of these things. But at the end, you won't live to tell the story because your own pride can destroy who you are. The very existence of who you are can be destroyed. The spirit of pride is a very dangerous thing. Do you realize you can't argue or fight with a prideful person? I will tell you that. I tell you all the time, I love to argue with people. Something sick and twisted inside my head, I don't know. But part of that goes back to the place that I'm prideful, and I like to be right, and I like to prove other people wrong. That's part of it. Let's just be real. That's part of why I like to argue, because I like to be right. I like you to be wrong. That's just the way that it is. But see, pride is something that if I can't, I got to leave it alone. I got to let God deal with pride. And I was talking to the band before. I said when we focus in on Jesus and we focus in our relationship with God, when we're focusing in on Him, we have no time to focus on ourselves. When we make it about Christ and we make it about what He did on the cross, we will not have time to make it about us. We will not have, we will not be able to do that. Pride will destroy you. And what's really interesting is there's a verse in Job that says this. Go ahead and put the next verse up, Justin. It's really interesting. It says this. That Leviathan will be king over all the children of pride. He beholds all things and is the king over the children of pride. It's interesting to me. I read that and the first word that pops out to me is king. Is king. Is that thing, that spirit, the spirit of Leviathan becomes king and ruler and dominator over me because I'm a child of pride. It's interesting that he uses that word. Because then we think about Jesus and we call Him the King of Kings. And we talk about how Jesus is the king over all. How Jesus is the king that we want to serve. Well, young person, let me tell you tonight. You can be the king. You can be either with the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and Jesus can be king over all of you. You can be a child of the one true king, or you can be a child and a king and be a children of pride. You do have a choice. It can be about you or it can be about God. But in this verse, Job says this. He said that he beholds all things, that Leviathan, he is the king over the children of pride. You choose to live how you want, when you want, with the way you want to. You become a prideful person. You become a children of pride. I don't want when I die and stand before Jesus, Jesus looks at me and says, listen, you're not my children. You're not my child. You're a child of pride. You're a child of Leviathan. I don't want that to be my answer. But if I live for myself each and every day, I choose to do what I want rather than God wants. I place myself before God. You know what's interesting about sin? Is you know that when you decide to sin, in your sin, you're telling God that what your sin is more important than what He's asked you to do. So when you commit sin, you're saying, God, what I want to do is more important than what you want me to do. That's what sin is. Sin is based upon me, what I want, when I want it, how I want it to happen. Guys, pride is a disease. It is a disease that, and it's what's interesting about pride, it's a self-inflicted disease. I would never walk into a room that has syringe needles everywhere, barefoot, and that in those syringe needles there's AIDS and there's all these diseases that I can get. I would never take off my shoes and walk barefoot into a room to purposely catch a disease. I would never give myself a disease. I would never give myself cancer. I would never give myself any of these things. I would never wish a disease upon myself. But pride is a self-inflicted disease spiritually. The spirit of pride you inflict upon yourself. You create it within yourself. There's influences from the outside of the spirit of Leviathan, but what we do is we seduce ourselves. And then pride will reinforce it. And it becomes a vicious cycle that we fight each and every day of our life. That we fight against ourselves. That we fight against our pride about who we are, what we want, how we want it. And then once you become an afflicted one and you're afflicted by pride, you're unteachable, you're judgmental, you usually seek to have control over others, you're possessive. Certain attributes of those who are prideful people. You're not able to be taught. You always want to blame other people for something that you did. You won't submit to any type of authority. You won't receive help from anybody. You have an attitude that you want to control everything. It's so funny because I was just talking. Anybody ever play Phase 10? Phase 10, card game. Do you know what's crazy about Phase 10? Is you can never truly be in control. You cannot truly ever be in control with chance. With that game, you can get to a point where you kind of know what's going on, but you are never in control because just when you think that you got a phase, boom, you're skipped. And you're ready to punch that person in the face. Or you'll be like me. I'll be like, listen, I've been stuck on phase 3 for 5 hours. For 5 hours. And you're skipping me? But see, the thing about phase 10, the card game is you are not in control. Some of us can't stand when we're not in control. We can't stand when we're not the ones that are in control of everything. Do you know that there is very little success rate for those that are unteachable? The critical time comes when one's ultimate confidence is in God is tested when there is an opportunity for you to do what God wants or what you want. So how does this relate to the teenage generation? How does this relate to who you are as teenagers living? It's very simple. The teenage generation that we live in is a very prideful generation. I'm just going to say it. There's no way of candy coating that. Your generation is very prideful. You have a hard time being taught. You have a hard time letting go of, and see, some of you are shaking your heads because you know it's true. You have a hard time being told what to do. Because as soon as you're told what to do, I'm not doing that. You can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me how to run my life. And that's the attitude. I don't need to respect people. They need to respect me. I don't need to respect an elder. They're just some old fart. I don't need to talk to them. I don't need to respect who they are. That's the attitude of Leviathan. The attitude of Leviathan is no, everything is mine. I do this, I do that. I walk into a house, this is mine. Don't take my stuff. Don't go to my place. This is mine, 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 mine. Possessiveness. This generation, you're a generation of being possessive. Oh, don't get me started in relationships. That's my girlfriend. That's my boyfriend. Don't look at them. Don't talk to them. Don't Facebook them. Don't you dare Facebook poke them. Don't text them. They're mine. This is mine. What's interesting is that things haven't changed in years. Do you know that when Jesus came, he didn't come to be served. He came to serve. When Jesus came, he came to serve you and me. I wonder what it would have been like if Jesus came in today's day and age. If Jesus came now, how would we treat him? How would we view him? In today's society, with how self-righteous we are, how would we view Jesus? Would we think he's a crazy man and stick him in a padded room? And what makes him crazy? What makes him crazy is that he thinks differently than me. What makes Jesus crazy is that what he says is completely different than what I believe. Jesus says that it's not about me, it's about others, but I think it's about me. Jesus says that you should do this, but I always thought you should do that. Jesus said that you should serve others, but I want people to serve me. Jesus said it's not all about me, but I want it to be all about me. So we stick Jesus in a padded room. If he came today because we think he's crazy because he's teaching something completely contrary to what you and I think and feel and believe, but yet he speaks the truth. But see, I believe that this spirit is coming against this generation so hard because ultimately the goal of Leviathan, the goal of pride, is to make you think that you don't need Jesus. It's to make you think that you don't need to have a relationship with Jesus. I always seen it this way. If you know who Jesus is and you know what he can do for you, and you choose just not to want to have anything to do with him because of yourself, that's a dangerous road. Because you know God, you know that he sent his son Jesus, you know what Jesus can do for you, but you continually decide to do what you want to do. That's Leviathan. That's pride. When you choose yourself over Jesus. Leviathan. It makes these professions, pride makes this lifestyle that's all about itself. Pride is like, I can do what I want when I want. Pride is, don't tell me what to do with my life. Pride is, I can have everything I want and I can just take it. Pride is, I don't have to work for anything. It can just be given to me. I believe that this is where this generation is at. And what stinks is it's only going to probably get worse as we continually move on with life. Leviathan is a very dangerous thing to face. Pride is a very dangerous thing. And listen, I tell you from experience, this is something that I can get up and really teach you about because this is something I've been fighting Leviathan for years. Many times I've had to be humbled. Many times I've had to fall on my face before God. So how do you overcome pride? Well, James 4:11 says, humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. Is that not what I said in the beginning? That, you know what, I'm done saying, God, I'm done trying to elevate myself. I'll let God elevate me. I'm keeping my eyes on him. I don't need people to elevate me. I don't need people's opinion to elevate me. But I need to know in my relationship with God that he can elevate me up. He will take me to places. And as he takes me, then the flow of the Spirit of God comes out of my life. When it says, humble yourselves, this is something we choose to do daily in every moment of every day, is that we choose to humble ourselves. You would rather humble yourselves. Trust me, listen to me. How am I going to say it? I'd rather you humble yourselves than God have to humble you. You don't want God to humble you. You don't want God to rip everything away from you. Because trust me, God is a jealous God. He wants to be served. He didn't create you to serve yourself. He created you to serve him. God knows how to keep the fire on. He knows how to get you to change yourself. You want to be humbled? Get around people who are humble people. Get around people that will be able to look at you and say, listen, you're not all that. You're not that great. Now, don't be mean. Don't be like, listen, you suck at life. No, don't do that. But a friendly reminder is like, man, listen, you're not that great. Remember who you used to be? Remember what God has brought you to? Talking to your girl, hey, remember how you used to be? But when you found Jesus, he changed your life, and because of who he is, you're at where you're at. And it's a constant reminder of people around you that I have to be reminded that I was a sinner, that I was lost, that I was found, that I needed Jesus. Get yourself around people who will look at you and say, you're not that great. Think humbly about yourself, not highly. You are never as good as people say you are, but you're never as bad as people really say that you are. I want to say that again. I am never as good or as bad as people say that I am, because I'm just your average guy that God has called to be in relationship with him. You have been called into a relationship with God. You're not as great as you think you are, but you're also not as bad as you think you are. Because there's both extremes. There's the spirit of Leviathan that will go against you and destroy you and build you up in pride. But then there's also the opposite end spiritually, where you this spirit of I'm unworthy. God can never love me. Going down that road, you are never too bad that God can't love you. Like me, like every leader here, we're all a work in progress. I don't have it all together. Other great pastors, they don't have it all together. We're working this out. So listen to me. It's okay that you don't have it all together now, but just love Jesus, live for Jesus, and keep pressing on. And as you keep pressing on, just make the right choice. Don't give in to the spirit of the Leviathan. See what Jesus did is Jesus found ways to express humility. Back then, people usually had to walk everywhere. If you've ever played in the mud or if you ever played in the dirt barefoot, you can get some grimy, nasty feet. You can. And see, back then, they walked everywhere in these open sandals and these open-toe shoes. Trust me, back then, they probably had some nasty feet. Nasty feet. They probably smelled. They probably were dirty as anything. But you know, one night, they were all in an upper room, and Jesus, without saying anything, he showed them how to serve by washing their feet. You want to beat the spirit of Leviathan, the spirit of pride? look for opportunities to be humble. Look for opportunities like Jesus did to serve. Look for opportunities. Jesus washed the disciples' feet. It's the greatest sign of humility. The greatest sign of humility. Find ways to serve other people. Find ways to serve those that are around you. I say it all the time. One of my favorite memories with my dad is going down to Pittsburgh and feeding the homeless. Serving them soup, serving them bread, serving them spaghetti. Running around like a little waiter, going to table, getting them what they need. Homeless people, but giving them the best that I could. Serving. A sign of humility. I said it before, I'll say it again. God humbled me when we got to camp. First thing I did at camp was clean poop off the floor. I don't know how you miss, but they definitely missed. But see, I was getting ready for a camp that I could have made it all about me. And God said, no, you're cleaning up poop. And you laugh, but I see it as a sign from God that God was humbling me again. Did they listen? This is not about you. But if you want to beat Leviathan, you want to beat the spirit of pride, listen to me. Number one, you need to be in relationship with Christ. You need to be walking with God daily. Because when you walk with God daily, you don't have time to fill your life with all your own nonsense that you want. When you focus in on Him, you have no time to focus in on yourself. Number two, you look for ways to serve. If we as a generation learned to be humble, learned to be people of humility, I believe that we would bring more people to Christ. You know, next week is See You at the Pole. Let me be real. Every time I say that, everybody's like, ooh. Do you know last year? Actually, it was 2 years ago. That when we stood outside Altoona campus, it was Joe, me, and a few others. We watched students that we knew attended this youth group and walk right in the building. They came every week. They knew what we were doing. They knew what we were about. One walked like this, and I'm not saying this is funny, but this is how one person walked. Embarrassed because their Pastor Micah is, and Joe and other leaders and other students getting ready to pray around a flagpole and pray for their community and pray for them and pray for their city. But yet they couldn't come and stand with us and pray. They couldn't even acknowledge the fact who we are. There'll be times Bethany and I will go out, we'll see kids from the youth group, and it's like you don't even know who we are. I understand you're around your friends. You're hanging out. You want to be cool, whatever. Just know I will tackle you and embarrass the crap out of you if you do not at least wave to me. I'm nuts. I'll do it. But listen to me. See You at the Pole's coming up. Next week, we're going to be commissioned as campus missionaries. You know what's really cool about a missionary? A missionary goes somewhere to serve. I have friends who are missionaries. I grew up with a family called the Barners, Kevin and Sandy, Blake and Brittany. They were my closest friends growing up. Kevin Barner was one of my dad's best friends. I remember sitting at their house and them telling my dad they're moving to Moscow, Russia. They don't know Russian. They don't know really much about the culture, but God's called them to move to Russia. Blake and Brittany are the same age as me and my older sister. They're in high school. They have to uplift and move everything that they know, everything they're comfortable with, their nice house, their good church that they're a part of. They have to leave everything and go to Russia, where there really isn't a church building, but they have to meet and rent out this hall. They really don't know too many people, so they just got to gather people for church. They don't know Russian at all, but they're going to go and live there. Do you know that they went to serve God, not to serve themselves? Because what they could have said is, no, I like living here. I like being here. I like doing this. I like doing that. I remember growing up, going to their house, hanging out as a kid. nice house, nice church. Then I remember going out to Moscow, Russia, and visiting them in their small apartment that they lived in. But they gave it all up to be missionaries, to serve, to humble themselves, because they're just doing what God told them to do. Now, after a period of being there, the kids are off, they're married. Now they're off in Bangkok. Kevin and Sandy, my parents' age, they went off to Bangkok to do it again. To serve people, to serve a generation. What would life be like if we served people each and every day? What would life be like if you and I were really humble people? Would we really care about those around us? I told you, if I had the open door one day, I'd sit at your school, and I would ask every one of your friends, do you know that this person's a Christian? Do you know that this person loves Jesus? Do you know that they come to youth group each week? Those would be the 3 questions I'd ask. About you, each and every one of you, if I could, I sit down in your classroom and ask, does this person act like they love Jesus? Do you know that they love Jesus? Do you know that they're a Christian? What would your friends say about you? Or you just, hey, you know what? I do my Jesus thing on Tuesday and Wednesday, but while I'm at school, that stuff's not for me. You're too cool because you're prideful. Because you don't want people to know, hey, I'm a Christian. I remember when I was in Bible college, I hated telling people where I went to college. People are like, what are you going to school for? I'm like studying a book. An really old book. They're like, yeah, it's got cool artifacts, cool stories, but that's what I'm studying the book, a book, you know. They're like, oh, that's cool. And then they ask me, what book? Bible. What was that? Bible. They're like, what? I'm studying the Bible. They're like, oh, you're one of them. Yes, I'm one of them. But then my senior year, that was like my freshman, my senior year, I didn't care. I'm like, yeah, I'm studying to be a pastor. I'm studying to serve people. At that point, I had thought of going on to further my education and go to school. I went out, I don't know how I landed there, but God ended up sending me out to Kentucky to work with a bunch of teenagers. You should have heard that conversation that night with me and God. Yes. No. Yes. I hate them. They stink. They smell. They're annoying. So do you. You're going. Went out to Kentucky. Served as a youth intern at a church. Fell in love with the teenage generation. Haven't looked back since then. I told the team in the beginning, if you guys want to come up, the worship team. I talked to them in the beginning and I said, something to them that I'm going to say to you. And I say this with sincereness. I say this with an importance because you need to hear it. Is that as your youth pastor, I want to apologize to you. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. Because I would lie to you if I did not say that sometimes my ego gets the best of me within this youth ministry. I'd be totally lying to you to tell you sometimes that pride in Leviathan doesn't rise up in my life. I'd be lying to you if I said, I don't really care sometimes if there's hardly anybody here. Because there's times when I've gone home on a Tuesday or Wednesday and I'm like, man, there's nobody there. Nobody there. And rather than thinking, God, thank you for the people that were there, I've been discouraged about the people that weren't here. Do you know, for a long time, I always focused on the empty seats rather than the seats that were filled. And when I started writing this sermon, God really wrecked my heart. I really had to examine my life and put a lot of things back into perspective. And God had to remind me that it wasn't about an empty seat or an empty chair, but it was about the one body that would fill the chair. And so before we even go into the altar call of worship, I wanted to say I was sorry to you. Because there have been times that I have let my pride and my arrogance, there's been times that I have allowed Leviathan to spur up in my life, in this ministry. And I told the team, and I apologized to them, and I said, we need to do whatever we can to make sure that this ministry is not about me, it is not about you, but it's about Him. But see, pride has a way of disguising things and confusing people and changing mindsets. And pride has a way of getting to you and to me. It got to me. Cameron, pride got to me. I had to humble myself, and I had to get around people that said, you know what, Micah, you're looking at this wrong. You need to refocus. And then I saw if an archangel can fall, an archangel can become the devil, what can I become? Well, I tell you what, I want to become a child of God more and more each day. I want to be known as a child of God, not a child of pride. I don't want to serve Leviathan. I don't want to serve a monster that I can't control. I don't want to allow pride to control me, but I want to allow my life to be dedicated to the work of God. Because listen to me, there's a flow of God that I know comes out of my life. And I can't allow a spirit of Leviathan to stop and hinder the flow. And just like you can't allow yourself and the prideful person that you are keep you from the flow of God in your life. I usually say bow your heads, close your eyes, but I want everybody to look at me tonight. You can be following after God and say that you love Him and still be a person of extreme pride. How does that work? Well, because it becomes to a point where it's about the performance of being a Christian rather than the lifestyle of being a Christian. It's easy to call yourself a Christian, but yet you still do what you want when you want. Trust me, there are times when I'm serving God, I'm on my highs, but I'm still battling myself. I'm playing king of the mountain with my pride, when I should be standing on that mountain rejoicing that I'm with God. So tonight, some of you are in these seats and you're sitting here and you're saying, you know what? Pastor Micah, I can relate more than anything. You can be a leader or you can be a student. It doesn't matter. Pride can destroy every one of us. Pride can come after each and every one of us. And if we are not careful, pride can rip everything away from you and me and destroy me. So tonight, if you can be truthful and you can lay aside your pride, you can lay aside yourself tonight and say, you know what? I battle with the spirit of Leviathan. Or you might be able to be like me and say, listen, I had the spirit of Leviathan with me for many years. Whatever it is, if pride has taken over your life, if pride has ruled your life, and you want to be free tonight, part of being free is humbling yourself. It said in James, I humble myself before the heart and throne of God. So with all eyes open, with everybody focusing here tonight, if you're struggling with pride, if you're struggling within yourself, if you're struggling with what you are and who you are, and you think that it's all about you, and you don't want to be a child of pride to Leviathan, and you want set free tonight, and you want to worship God, and you want to start over, and you want to be a person of humility, I want you to come right now. Come on.